I'm Ref Dave, and you're listening to Ron Talks Tabletop Super Show Sunday. Ring the bell!
Hey folks, Ron here. This is the Ron Talks Tabletop Podcast, Super Show Sunday, a subset of my podcast where I talk about my favorite card game, Super Show the Game. And I have another special guest today. So, guest, would you please introduce yourself? Who are you, sir?
I'm Dave Posthumus, longtime tabletop gamer, but people in Super Show know me as Ref Dave.
All right. Obviously, we know you as Ref Dave for a reason, and we'll get into that as we get into this podcast. Thank you for coming on my channel today.
I'm super happy to be here, man. I love tabletop games, and I've been exploring them more as kind of a midlife crisis, getting back into it. I don't know, crisis puts a negative connotation on things, so I like to think of it as a midlife revival. But it's fun to see like where the hobby was, where I started it, and where it is now, podcasts and where things are. It's been a very fun thing, and I'm very very happy to be here.
Great. We're going to get into Super Show in a bit because this is a Super Show podcast. But the thing about Super Show that it is a wrestling themed card game. So we hit the wrestling fandom, we hit the tabletop gaming fandom, and I know that you have a background with both. So I want to talk about that. But first of all, Dave, thanks for being on my podcast. But my first question is, how did you get into hobby gaming?
It's kind of been around all my life. I wouldn't call it hobby game early on, playing Monopoly, Parcheesi, Rummy with grandparents, just kind of having games. We had a family cottage up north, and we'd sit around as a family and play things. So it's just always been around. And then as I kind of developed my own, nerdy, dorkier habits, I was really attracted to like Hero Quest, some of the old Games Workshop games like Battle Masters. I don't know if anyone had this huge, big, like 4 foot board you'd lay out. You had a cannon and ogre. That was really cool. And just kind of I went into those more hobby type games. And then that continued through middle school into high school. We had a German exchange student one time in my friend group that brought Die Siedler, which is Settlers, over from Germany right when it was hitting off then. And that took off big for us. So we played that for a while.
Okay.
I got super into Blood Bowl in high school and started playing with miniature games. And then I kind of went away from it for a while in college. And I
Oh,
didn't do a lot of hobby games at that point.
interesting. So you played Settlers when was it a German version of the game?
Yeah, the German version.
It's,
Yeah.
okay. When
I
was that?
Siedler with the Ritter instead of the robber. I think they called it
What,
coal instead of ore. I
or
can't
right.
remember though. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
What time? Middle school. So
Yeah.
I want to say eighth or ninth grade, which is probably like late 90s,
Yeah.
mid
And
90s,
that's
something like that.
yeah. Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was my point. Like Settlers wasn't really a thing in
Yeah. Yeah. No,
America.
I saw it blow up after we were like, this game. Yeah, we remember this game. Yeah, that was a thing for sure. Yeah, because a German exchange student brought it with him when he came. He
That's
loved
a
it.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. Go ahead, carry on.
Yeah, so that happened. And then, like I said, I kind of got out of it a little bit as college started. And towards the end of college, I actually went and lived in China for a year. When I was over there, I really fell in love with playing Chinese chess and Go with people. And people play it on street corners all the time and whatnot. I'm a very social person, and it was a great icebreaker to like sit down with some folks that were older than me that maybe wouldn't talk to the young American who wanted to learn all about Chinese culture and things and just show some like love for that. And they taught me a whole bunch about the games. And then when I came back to America, I had reinvigorated my love for hobby gaming. And then that's when I got into it more in the modern sense, where I was making like monthly $200 orders and starting a game group and having like way too many games I could count that you could only play once or twice before you moved on to the next one, which I think a lot of people do when they get into the hobby. And I got more into miniature games through that. And, I had a good game group for a while, late college, before kind of the people had started careers and that sort of thing. And then eventually that kind of pittered out, and my collection got down to a more manageable 80, 90 games, things I really like. And that's when I found role playing games. So I always had liked role playing games, but never had time. but I kind of delved into that phase of hobby for a while.
Okay.
And I still run a group once in a while. So I've kind of run the whole gamut. And then
Oh,
I will say hobby games recently, again, I kind of faded out a little bit. I kept the role playing game thing going until I went to my very first Gen Con this last year, 2024. And that's actually where I found Super Show, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. So now I'm doing the card game thing too.
awesome. So yeah, we will talk about Super Show, but I think that you have a great knowledge of pro wrestling. At least it impressed me when I hear you talk about it, and I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. Like, what's your background and history with pro wrestling?
Yeah, love that. So loved it when I was a kid and my era. So I'm 42. I'll be 43 this year. So if anyone is close, you know which era of pro wrestling I'm talking about. But when I was a kid, it was like, late 80s, very early 90s, what they call the golden era. Hogan, Jake the Snake, Big Boss Man, Legion of Doom, larger than life kind of caricature type characters. And I just fell in love with it when I was a kid. I loved it, super into it basically through the Monday Night Wars and the start of the Attitude Era and all those things. And then, much like with my hobby gaming, and I do realize hearing me say these things, I am a man of many hobbies. So there's a lot of those things I kind of fade in and then fade out of and then get back into and fade. So I kind of faded as I got into college in a way and trying to figure out myself and all those fun things. And I really put pro wrestling on the shelf for a long time until dental school. So I'm a dentist, and during dental school, my daughter was born right before dental school started. So she basically was around the family right when I started dental school. And after working sun up to sundown at dental school, getting home, checking on the wife, see how my baby was, every once in a while, I just needed to turn my brain off. So what I found was I would watch AAA. I can't speak Spanish, and I would find Mexican wrestling on and just kind of zone out and watch it and not really worry about dental school or family life and just kind of look at the characters and kind of make my own little stories up as I watched and kind of try to figure things out on the fly. And then I realized, dang, I really love wrestling. And then from AAA, and that, I rekindled that passion for it. That was right around the time Lucha Underground was coming out. If I don't know if anyone is familiar with that, but that was a big transition for me to go from Mexican wrestling that I couldn't understand in AAA and CMLL to something that was an English product with some of the wrestlers I knew and whatnot. And then that opened the floodgates. I was sold back in. I was watching WWE stuff. I was following the Lucha Underground guys on the indies, doing that sort of thing. Started going to shows again, all that good stuff. And then eventually I went through enough shows and met a lot of the local guys and things like that, where they invited me to come train to learn how to wrestle. And I'm very much a do things guy, not just a watch things from afar guy. So I said, you know what? I'm too old to wrestle, but I bet I could ref. So I started training with them and learning how to ref, and here we are.
Nice. We're glad to have you in the community. That's a hobby within a hobby.
For sure.
You're a wrestling
So
fan, but go ahead.
it's true. I have a coach that has done a great job teaching me and training me and kind of getting me up to speed on things. But it's weird because I think there's different tiers. He kind of taught me. So I'm more of a weekend warrior, right? For me, it is a hobby. So I do it for fun. I do it as a release. I do it to be a part of something I'm passionate about. And that's it for me. But at the same time, I'm working with people that are trying to make a career out of it. They're trying to move up that ladder. And then I have some veterans that are just around because they still love it and can they still do it and they want to give back. There's really a multifaceted group out there in the pro wrestling community that all has to work together to put this on. So for me, it's a hobby, yes, but a lot of times I don't treat it as a hobby because there's a lot of people that treat it as a profession, and I have
Right,
to
yeah.
respect that.
Perhaps I actually shouldn't have said hobby because I can't
For
think of a
some
better word
people,
for it right now.
some
For some
people, but
people it
yeah,
is.
but for me, it is a hobby. And really, it's more just a way to be performative and express something I'm passionate about and do it within a community that appreciates your work most of the time. Sometimes they don't, but most of the time they do. And the other thing that really has been big for me was how do I take this thing I like to another level? Where when I talked about midlife crisis before, I'm a big believer. You got to keep trying new things. You got to keep learning, man. You can't ever stop doing that. And if I'm not challenging myself with new things, then I'm going to be stagnant and, in the past. So this was a new challenge for me. I never really, I was never part of community theater. I never really tapped into that creative, performative side. And it's been a great challenge at this part of life that also gives me a bunch of lessons to do what I already do am good at, which is be a father and be a dentist and do those other things. So
Of course, that's all pretty fascinating. You grew up with games and got out, got back in, like a lot of people do with various hobbies, and it's kind of the same thing with pro wrestling. And now that you're a ref and everything like that. But how did you get into Super Show, and what is it that you love about it?
that's basically, I told you 2024 is my first Gen Con. Having this new passion for wrestling that was being ignited right in the middle of me reffing and doing all these things. I went into it saying, I'm going to find some kind of cool wrestling board game or some kind of wrestling game because that's what my life has been about the last couple
Okay, so
months is
you were
kind of
so you
learning
were
this.
looking for a game.
Yeah, I was looking
Interesting.
for a wrestling game. I had played Rumble Slam before, which is a minis game. It's not like Blood Bowl. And I found that on the floor and they had a cool little booth and things. And then I ran into the Super Show booth and I had heard of it. I used to be a member there was an online community forum called Fortress Ameritrash. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but a few of the guys on there had played that. And I had always heard it mentioned, but, at the time, the interest didn't line up. So I knew of the game and I said, oh, I'll give it a try. And I had it demoed for me. Pat Mulligan demoed it for me. Thank you, Pat. And I was like hooked right away. This is perfect. Quick game that had good wrestling feel. It felt like wrestling. The people around me were having a good time playing. And I was like, this is the game. This is the game I was looking for. So I kind of went in, bought too much stuff, showed up at the booth every day, see what was going on, kept checking back in, and had a blast with Super Show that weekend.
Yeah, so did I.
I saw you
I
there.
was
I didn't know you at the time, but I think I saw you there at some point.
Yeah, I was doing demos. That was not the reason why I went up to Gen Con, but they had a need and I jumped in.
And that's awesome. Yeah. And then you asked what I love about it.
Yeah.
So a couple things I love about one, I said it feels like wrestling, and that's what I was looking for, which I like. I love the art because it's all wrestling inspired. All of the eye candy stuff is very cool. And that's what like initially brought me to it. And then as I started to play it a little more after the convention and after I learned the basics, the things I really like about it are I really like the dice aspect of it. I love rolling dice in all the games. Miniature gamer at heart loves rolling dice. Big surprise. But that gives it kind of a random nature where it feels, even at some levels, it is cutthroat, but it just feels less cutthroat. It feels more fun. Like, oh yeah, dice got me. People are less like win at all cost. It kind of feels, and then there's this great community around the game that exists online and in these small pockets of locals and all these other things. It hit all the right notes, eye candy wise. And as I play it, there is depth there. I'm not saying it's simple, but I love the fact that as a new player, I can pick up a deck, put it together, and because of dice rolls and because I could play someone that's played for 10 years, 10-year anniversary, I think, right? Of the game. Is
Yep.
that right, Ron?
Those. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So I could play somebody from the start and, we're pretty much not necessarily on the same level. I'm sure they know more than me, but I got a good chance. I got a good chance to win or at least be competitive. And I don't have to memorize 800 different steps. And most of the people I'm playing with are there to have a good time and, ring bells and yell 1, 2, 3 and all that fun stuff. And that's why I love wrestling too.
Exactly. Number one, the dice are the great equalizer. And number two, it's a card game, so there's a random element in that as well. And it's great because, like, 9 times out of 10, the person with the better skill is going to win the game. But there's always that chance. I demo the game at one of the local game stores with a venture crew. I got this one trash talking kid. He started trash talking from his demo. He won the demo. He won a series of games at a store event. He just went on a tear early. All luck. You won't see that in like other games like Magic or what have you, and no shade to those games, but I think it's great because the kid's hooked now.
He bought
Um,
in and he said, "Oh, look how good I can do," and
right,
whatnot. Yeah, and
yeah,
that's
yeah,
awesome. And I will say,
exactly.
like I said, like any game, it could be a lifestyle game. If you like lifestyle games and you want to have this be your one game, it could be, or you could have one deck and just play around, and you can kind of put what you want into it and still have a good time.
Yep, exactly. I mean, that's how it started for me. This was just going to be, another game in my collection that was just going to occupy, a light filler game slot. It just grew into more. As I got more involved in the Super Show and its community, and I know that you are involved very much in the community. So I want to talk about that, Dave. Like, what is your involvement in the Super Show community?
Well, first, I will say one of the reasons I have really attached on to the online community, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, this game was kind of an offshoot of wrestling, and wrestling was a part of me discovering my performative side. And I've always liked film, and I was always at TV production classes through high school, and then some film classes in college. This, through the online community, gives me a chance to film promos, which are small little video vignettes, and share them with people that are in a mindset to kind of, appreciate some of the things that I tie it to wrestling or I tie it to comedy things or whatnot. So there's a built-in audience of somewhat kind of like-minded folks who explore this performative space. And that was really, really appealing to me. So if you asked me my one thing I could contribute to this community since I've been a part of it, it would be I would hope people enjoy my promos as much as I enjoy making them for the community. It really has been a fun thing, and to describe like making different characters and just kind of expressing some filmmaking ideas that before would just float in my head and kind of go away. Now I have an avenue and a venue to share them with people, and a lot of times people respond, and that's great. That gives me positive feedback to keep going, keep trying, try different things, all of that. So
Yeah.
that's where I started for sure. That was the biggest appeal to me. And then I happened to also very, very fortunately get lumped in with some like-minded thinkers that run a Twitch show on Fridays, and it's called Candy Shop Talk. And my three co-hosts there are all very wonderful people. And it just, when I think of Super Show, I definitely think of those three first and having a good time and just talking about it. The case where you make internet friends that feel like real friends. And doing that has been, I think that's a way I can give back to the community too, is be a part of a show that gives the whole community a platform, talk about the game or other things around the game that they want to do in a fun, informative way.
And you definitely fit into that group.
Yeah, we kind of hit the ground running, and it's
Yeah.
funny because I won a lottery. It was like a spin the wheel lottery to play Swaggy on stream, and from that it just works. And sometimes things just work, right? And I really do look forward to Fridays. It brings a smile to my face whenever I know, oh, Candy Shop's coming up. I get to talk to my people, talk to the LFF community or SRG community, whichever one you prefer. And it really has been something to look forward to and kind of solidify why I enjoy this online community that surrounds this game.
Right. And one of the other things that you've gotten into is being an actual referee for Super Show games, which
Oh
is
yeah,
which is kind of
I think that was an easy transition. And honestly, I told you before, I've done a lot of promos, but I do think there is a lot more space to bring more wrestling into the game for the people that want it. I think obviously it's seeped in wrestling already, but just because of the theme, the nature, everything else. But it's not a hard transition. I yell, ring the bell, I watch the game, I look for things. Sometimes I miss things, just like a wrestling referee would. It adds a pomp and circumstance to it to have a ref on board that isn't just a guy watching it that wears stripes and can be seen as like air of authority, even though they don't really have authority. But we can talk about that. That's a more wrestling thing.
right.
But just to have that there, I think is a fun little aspect of it. And I hope it catches on. I hope it continues on other things too.
I'll be honest with you. I feel like it's a breath of fresh air because of that. It helps me be immersed in the actual theme of an online game in particular. I don't know if you had an opportunity to do that like with an in-person game yet, but that
Yeah,
would
but
be
I,
cool.
I think that's coming next convention season, right? I'm excited, Grand Gathering. I'm planning to come in, and I'm hoping that kind of translates well. But I actually do think playing a card game, which in my mind, that's supposed to be man in person across the board. You could talk and laugh and high five with the person. And then when you're playing online, you need some little footstool to kind of get back up to a feeling because it's not quite the same. And like you said, that little environment to be able to get into it, to buy the theme, I think that helps. I think that's a good bridge to make up for the fact that we're X amount of miles away and we're not in person together. So I haven't thought about it too much, but I'm glad that's very positive feedback. It warms my heart to hear you say, "Hey, that helps me feel like that's kind of why I'm here and part of the thing." Because that's why I do it, man.
Cool. What other ways do you feel like being a ref affects your Super Show fandom and involvement?
I think it's hard. I have to be careful because
Okay.
once you're backstage in wrestling, you look at it a little differently. I think that's the best way to say it. Once you're a part of the wrestling community, there are certain things you say and do that you're working with an air of keeping kayfabe alive and other things. So I have to be a little careful with how I answer this question. But I really think so much people the promos in this game, at least on the online community, and how people interact when they play each other. Okay, when we talk about title belts and we hold it and what that means over our shoulder, or when somebody calls somebody out and we adapt that heel and face persona. I get to see that backstage, see how it's formed, how the professionals do it. And I think I can bring that. And when I have a program with someone, I can use my knowledge in a situation they may not have been and bring that to those interactions, just like they can then enlighten me with their background and knowledge. And it's a place I think a lot of people don't have access to. So to be able to share a little bit of that and how we would do things in a strictly professional wrestling situation and then blend it into how Super Show works, I think is really cool.
It's true, because I didn't get back into wrestling until I found Super Show a year and a half ago. And I've consumed a lot of wrestling since. But, I haven't, and at the same time, like it's not like I've been watching wrestling this like for a super long period of time. I watched it in my childhood, a little bit in my 20s with my wrestling fanatic roommate, and then at a couple of periods where I just fell off for years at a time. There's a lot of stuff that I'm still learning. And the little tidbits that you've shared, like in public about stuff, I felt like it's helped me focus a little
And
better on what I'm doing
if any
with
Super
that.
Show players are listening, man, I love working programs with people. Or if you want, some of my knowledge, I'm not the end all be all. I'm not the expert. I don't know everything. But if you want to say, run it to somebody that has a little experience and has been backstage or have a question, man, please feel free. In many of my promos, I've talked about making everybody else better, right? I want to raise everybody's
Exactly.
game. So I'm open for it. Come find me and let's talk. If you want to do something or run a program or whatever you want to do, I think this community is great. We have new shows like Stacked Card that teach you more about mechanics for the game. We have talk show. There's so many avenues. Know that I'm an avenue too. If you are looking for feedback, it's not the answer. It's just feedback. Keep it rolling around in my
Keep it
mind,
rolling.
Ron. I know
Yeah,
if one person wants it, maybe we'll see, but
right.
we'll
Yeah,
we'll let it run its course. I do like
yeah,
talking to the people. I like giving back to the people.
yeah,
Yeah, that's why I do these things. It makes me smile. Hearing when people react to your product, right? So hey,
yeah.
if that's something that there's a need for it, I'm not going to say no.
Right, right. Um, your promos are really good, and it's not just about the production values. It's about the stories that you tell, your stance on things, and the programs that you work with people, and people really enjoy them. How do you find inspiration for your promos, and like, what's your basic process on how you make them?
A lot of times I wait for inspiration to strike me because this game is fun and because this is a hobby and something I try to keep it comedic. So a good tip for a wrestling promo, what does a good wrestling promo do? It tells you what you want to say pretty directly, tell the people where it's going to happen or when it's going to happen, and then you give a little flair to it, right? So I treat it like a wrestling promo. If I was gonna, wrestle somebody, I'd tell them what date, the where and the why, and then give a little flair to it. And the flair tends to be comedic. I try to think of something funny or something that people will find unique. So my very first promo went over really, really well. Technically, it was my second because I introduced myself with just a like camera selfie one. But my first one, actually won promo of the year last year in our community. And I said, all right, what haven't I seen? A lot of people don't have this access to a wrestling ring. So what's something I can do in a wrestling ring? That's basically how I thought of it. It's one idea, and then I just build from there. And I said, all right, funniest things are comedy is something that people can identify with real life. Even if you're not a ref, you know people that daydream on their job. I love Super Show. I'm going to be daydreaming about it. We put it in a wrestling ring to make it unique. Bam, comedy gold right there. Take a couple takes. You get wrestlers, which really are just actors, so they're really good at being on camera because that's all they do is act all the time. And the rest is history. And that's kind of how it goes. I get a base idea. What do I want to say? Put a comedic spin, or sometimes a serious spin, or sometimes an angry spin, whatever it calls for, and then go from there. And actually, in our community, I have a couple different personas that come out, and that came out through just working these things out. So when I felt a little meaner or felt like something needed to be said that is kind of against my natural inclination, which is smiley, happy Ref Dave that likes to have a beer and ask how your day was, I realized there were some promos that I wanted to tell people to, be quiet or push back against what they were saying. And it felt weird, but then I could create this character that could show up. And for him, it was normal to be that. Like, that's like my Jekyll and Hyde side, right? So
Right.
now that opens a whole nother avenue of different ideas and promos go. And it's just a tree that keeps growing. So it's been fun because I'm exploring my own brain for ideas as much as I'm putting it out there. And then what would be cool film wise to do it? And how can I translate this into a position where people would enjoy it? So it's been a process. It's been fun. My family gets involved, which is a lot of fun. So we have a good time with the promos.
Yeah, doesn't Ref Dave have three personalities? Is Ref
I
Dave,
I
is
did.
Bad Boy? What okay.
Hit Ref got fired. He was old school.
Oh,
He was
right.
the old school
Okay. Oh, Hit
competitor.
Ref, that's right.
Yeah, Hit Ref. That was my Bret Hart kind of related personality. And two things found out. One, I'm very bad at doing Bret Hart impressions. So Hit Ref was going to have to be put in the back pocket for a while because I'm not good at it. But it was very fun to try for a little bit. And if you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at, right? Um, but you never know. Not to give any spoilers, but since there's usually three of us, and there's only been two for a while, maybe we'll see a third personality show up at some point. Who knows?
Who knows? Well, it's all been fun. And even you're, really going after somebody in a certain way, there's been a fun spin to them. So they've been really great to watch. We do this thing in Super Show to explain to you folks. Well, there's a weekly show called Talk of the Universe, and they do a promo of the week. The thing is, with promo of the week, they limit it to 2 minutes because they don't want to be showing videos that go on for too long. So you've gotten promo of the week once or twice when you've actually cut your videos down to 2 minutes. But I've liked every promo that you've done. But I think that when you do the promos to the length that you really want them to, tend to be
Yeah,
significantly
I'm
over the
almost
2 minute
always
mark.
over 2 minutes. If you guys
Yeah,
haven't figured out listening to this podcast that I can talk and talk and talk and talk, then you haven't been listening because we could go for me going forever. Ron only has to jump in once in a while, but
yeah,
I can definitely talk for a while. And I get what you're saying. I don't think you should make a promo to a time frame. I think a promo
I
should be
agree.
idea, and whatever that idea needs to get out there is fine. And I told some of the community members, I'm okay. I don't do promos to win promo of the week. It's a cool honor when you get it. That's great. But I do promos to express myself and into an audience that I hope appreciates that expression and can react to it however they want. And if it means win promo of the week, great. If that means, man, that was a long promo, I'm bored, that's fine too. I can
Yeah,
understand that. I'll take that feedback and understand, but I'm never going to be someone that edits down to a time. I'm always going to have an idea and film it and go on there. It's just like when you hear a director talk about, a studio, you get your director's cut that's like way longer and has more. Some people don't like that. They would rather have the studio edit that is easier to digest and all that, and that's fine. So until I get an editor or some financial backing that tells me what I have to do, I'm going to have long promos probably.
uh, a movie pundit that I tend to follow has this belief, and I agree with him, that the ideal movie length is the length that it needs to be to tell a complete, compelling story.
Couldn't say it any
I
better
feel the
myself.
same. Yeah, I feel the same way about promo. If that happens to be 2 minutes, then that's fine. It could be 30 seconds. I've seen some bangers of 30-second promos, but I've also seen some really great 4 minute promos as well.
And I
Anyway,
would say if if you're filming promos, don't edit it to time. Get your idea out there, you know?
Yeah.
Get your idea out there. Don't worry about winning promos a week. Don't worry about people. This should be for you. That's what a promo is. It's for you to express yourself in this community, at least.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I do it.
By the way, I love
Hope,
your promos too.
oh,
They've been very good. They make me smile.
thanks. So, what is next for you? What you got going on here coming up?
One really big thing I'm starting is I'm starting my own local play group up here in West Michigan. I had actually my first demo day this last weekend. It was a soft launch where I didn't really advertise. I just showed up to the store and demoed the game a bunch and tried to get some interest going. And then I'm going to have another soft launch demo day that we advertise a little bit for in April. And then I hope we have our first local event in May. So a lot of resources are going through that. I kind of know some of the things that I think are cool. You know, I want to have a belt. I have a ring belt to do, you know, matches. Kind of. I have a great game store owner that even though he doesn't really have the game, but we're getting him product and all that, getting that set up. So I want to launch it the right way, you know, and kind of be a slow build. As much as I love the online community, I really like playing in person. I'm a people person, so it's nice to have that interaction. So I'm excited for that. And then as far as online community, I've met a lot of awesome people. I want to keep doing things there. I hope to continue to promo work. If you've noticed recently, and if you pay attention for the next month or two, you're going to see some kind of more long-term storytelling coming into my promos. Before it was kind of just a nice little tidbit. Now, if you listen towards the end, there's a little bit more linking together, and there's probably going to be some other things incorporated. So some fun that I don't want to ruin the surprise right now, but that will be happening. A little more long-term storytelling, and then I managed to get a couple title shots. I think I failed my first one. I got another one coming up, which for the viewers, there are some like nationally recognized belts amongst the community in different divisions. Or I guess listeners, we're not viewers here. I've got a couple of those coming up, and that's great. And as I keep learning more about the game, I mean, there's still so much to learn. Every time I play, I kind of pick up some new things and different ways to play and all that, and that's been great. So I'm just
Yeah.
looking forward to keep diving in deeper and deeper.
But thanks for being on the show. And I have one final question that I ask all of my guests that come onto the show. So this should not come as a surprise. So, Dave, what is something interesting about you that people may not know about?
And so this is a funny answer because I'm going to say 100% of the time, my answer is that I'm a professional wrestling referee. Like that is always the answer. What do people not know about you? Oh, I ref professional wrestling. But you guys know that already. I've already talked about that. So as far as something else that's interesting, and I talked about my time living in China and all that, all those other things. So it's really tough. I would say, can I just flip it and say that I'm a dentist? People, but I already talked about that too. So I kind of talked about all my things. Here, I got this. I got this. I got a good one. So in dental school, you talked about how I kind of have a creative eye for things and whatnot. So I have an actual altered persona that I use when I really had to study hard and kick butt and not just kind of goof off and do things. I created a character for myself named Chauncey. Chauncey is a guy that when I really need to focus on something and block out the rest of the world, he comes out and acts and talks and I really am a different person. So I can drop into that. And that's something I've kind of done my whole life when I need to, even though you see it in my promos for fun and laughs and all that, and I do it. I actually kind of do that for real. And you know, when I needed to pass a test, Chauncey came out, the Facebook profile changed to a bunch of books instead of whatever it was. And I lived that life for a week until it was done. And then I dropped back into regular life. So I don't know if this is art imitating life or life imitating art, but there you go. Maybe I actually am a little schizophrenic in the head. And I guess we'll just have to hang out more to find out. But there's my interesting fact since I already spilled my guts about all the other ones.
It can be pretty hard answering this question when your life is an open book.
I mean, yeah, and I love talking about it. I love being here and all those things. But yeah, like I said, the big surprise for everyone is always, oh yeah, I ref professional wrestling, and you guys, that's what this interview was based on. So you already stole my show stopping answer from the start.
But that's okay. This has been an interesting conversation, which I've enjoyed. I just wanted to say finally, thank you for being on the show. Where can we find you?
So if you are in the Super Show group, it's under Ref Dave. Stick those promos. I almost always put them there. Every once in a while, there may be one that has slightly more adult themes, and that would be in the candy. But there's groups for that too. So look, just my name's Dave Posthumus on Facebook and just search my name, David. I'm sure promos will come up. But I would love for you to tune in Fridays to Candy Shop Talk. That's my Twitch show. If you go to Twitch, a Big Picture Premium, you can find our talk show there. And on most Fridays, I'm on that. And then where I'd love to find me more than anywhere else is if you are anywhere in Michigan and you are coming to indie wrestling shows, look for the guy in stripes named Rough Dave. Usually the crowd will be booing him very loudly. That's how you can find me there. But I usually sign off with support your local indie wrestling promotion. And if you can do that by finding me there in person, I'll buy you a beer.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Ron Talks Tabletop Podcast Super Show Sunday. And until next time, see you later.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. I love being here.